The views expressed on this special broadcast of the Take 12 radio show do not necessarily reflect those of KHLT Recovery Broadcasting or its affiliates. KHLT is not affiliated with any particular 12-step fellowship.
A very scary experience.
You know, God is a solution. God, the 12 steps.
I like where he's going here.
Helps the community grow, helps us grow.
Monty has done a phenomenal job.
Lack of open-mindedness. And you're talking about taking people through a spiritual process, getting them into recovery.
Thanks, Monty, and thanks for all your support.
We need spirituality to make this thing work long term.
It's an absolute pleasure. He certainly knows a lot of people.
This is one of the places that is about the business of the solution.
And now, broadcasting on location somewhere in the vast expanse of the Pacific Northwest, it's the over-opinionated 12-stepologist, the Monty Man.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Well, welcome aboard, all you folks out there, all you happy scallywags and scallywagettes. Welcome aboard the Good Ship Recovery here at Take12Radio.com on your internet dial. It's good to have you with us. And I definitely am on location on my blessed assurance in the audio booth at the studios of KHLT Recovery Broadcasting on the outskirts of beautiful downtown Albany, Oregon. Our email address here is take12radio@comcast.net. That's the number 12. And you can visit our brand spanking new website at take12radio.com. It's the same URL address, but it's a brand new site. It's a brand new look. It's easier. It's a faster download. It's streamlined. Take 12 Radio, T-A-K-E, the number 12 radio.com on your internet dial. You can spell it out, the number 12 as well. It'll take you to the same place. All right. How's your hacking? How's your hacking, all you coughers out there, all you smokers, all you people that are coughing due to smoking? I know many of you are good friends of mine, and you scare me. Because you are burdening your body, your mind, your spirit with something that just isn't necessary. But having said that, how easy is it just to put down the cigarettes, put down the pipe, put down the cigar or the chew or whatever delivery system you're using? Easier said than done, right? Well, This show is featuring Greg Seward, my friend. He hasn't been on in quite a while. Greg is, let me just run down some things here. Director of Tobacco Free Initiative, Director of Tobacco Constellation Services, Licensed Independent Alcohol and Drug Counselor. He's a Master Level Tobacco Treatment Specialist, Instructor at the School of Medicine for the Department of Psychiatry at the University of Massachusetts Memorial Medical Center and University of Massachusetts Medical School. You can't get much more expertise than that when it comes to nicotine and the consumption of tobacco products and what it does and doesn't do for you. And so I welcome, again, it's been a long time. This show has been really late in coming. We should have had Greg on again way before this. Greg, welcome back to the show, my friend.
Thank you, Monty. It's such a pleasure and a treat to be back here. I'm just thrilled about spending time with you.
Well, thank you. Greg, this is a passion of yours to educate, inform, and empower people when it comes to the dangers and the health risks of consuming tobacco. True?
That is true. I got started, working in, I guess you could say, the addiction and mental health field many years ago, and it seemed to me that not many people were, in the clinical sense, were paying attention to tobacco and nicotine, and it seemed that this is the one that a lot of people really, really struggled with, and it's the one, sadly, that takes a lot of people in recovery who continue to smoke. takes them for an early death. Takes a lot of financial, a lot of financial resources are taken away because of smoking. A lot of money from families' budgets, from their income, and when someone really struggles and dies early, it affects the whole family. To be blunt, a lot of tobacco-related deaths aren't pretty, and if you've seen any of the CDC tips from a former smoker commercial, you'll see some of them there. I'm not sure how much cigarettes cost in Oregon right now, but in Massachusetts, name brand tobacco, you can spend $10 or more on a pack. And
oh my goodness!
If you're a one pack a day smoker and your family, that's $300 a month.
Gee, Chris, I had no idea.
It is. So $300 a month. I mean, that's a car payment, insurance, gas. That's a better place to live.
Yeah.
Better clothes for the kids. Better food on the table. You can do a lot of things with that. I helped one guy quit smoking, and he sent that money to a Salvation Army relief effort for the first month that he quit. There's just so many good things that can come from quitting. And that also, there's some research that shows that continued smoking can be a trigger back into alcohol and other drug addictions.
You bet.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Often, just like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, peanut butter and jelly go well together, but sometimes, just the sight, the smell, the sound of the cigarette or the lighter or the match is a trigger back into other addictions. So it's something that ought to be addressed.
Yeah, it really ought to be. Now, let's talk a minute about secondhand smoke, because I know this is a big controversial thing. We haven't heard a lot of media coverage of people poo-pooing the idea that secondhand smoke is harmful in a while. But there for a while, man, it was all over the place. People were arguing and fighting about it, and you're taking my rights away, and because some cities in the United States have outlawed smoking in public places, even in public parks. We have a city here in Oregon, Corvallis. If you're smoking in a public park, you're going to get cited. And a lot of people up in arms about it. So I'm going to play a clip here from the CDC, and then I want you to remark about it afterwards. So listeners, check this out.
Secondhand smoke kills more than 400 infants and 41,000 adult non-smokers every year. Secondhand smoke exposure is when non-smokers breathe in smoke exhaled by smokers or from burning tobacco products. States and cities can work to prohibit smoking in indoor public areas and work sites, including restaurants, bars, and casinos. Healthcare providers can help patients who smoke to quit and encourage non-smoking patients to avoid secondhand smoke exposure. Everyone can make their homes and cars 100% smoke-free, not allow anyone to smoke around children, avoid public places where smoking is allowed, and talk to children about why they shouldn't smoke or be around secondhand smoke. If you or someone you know smokes and wants to quit, call 1-800-QUIT-NOW or go to smokefree.gov for free help. The bottom line is there is no safe level of secondhand smoke exposure.
All right. So I'm hearing 400 infants a year, 41,000 non-smokers a year. And there are people listening to the show right now that says, those are inflated numbers. Are those inflated numbers, Greg?
Well, I don't know that they are. I don't know exactly how many infants, but I do know that 40 to 50,000 Americans every year die from secondhand smoking. Secondhand smoke is a Class A carcinogen. It does cause cancer. If you're around it enough, it can cause lung disease. It can cause asthma exacerbations in little kids. A couple of times a year, or more, I'm called to see parents of an infant or a toddler that's been admitted to the pediatric ICU. So the little chap is, or the little boy, little girl is admitted to the pediatric ICU for such a bad asthma exacerbation. That's the level of treatment they need. And it's caused by the parent smoking. And so it is a serious issue. First let me say that just like non-smokers, most smokers are good people, and they really care about their children.
Yeah.
And when you work with folks, you have to be careful you don't come across like you're beating them up. So anytime, if a parent who smokes is smoking like in their garage or out on the back porch away from kids, they're doing that because they don't want their kids to be harmed. So they have, at least a good awareness of the health impacts. There are some states or some provinces in Canada where it's against the law to smoke in a car with a child present because of the secondhand smoke exposure and danger. I don't know that it causes cancer on the first day the child's exposed to it, but it does have health impacts, and repeated over time, you're setting up the person that's breathing in the secondhand smoke. You're setting them up for future health problems that are quite significant often. Secondhand smoke is a documented, it can cause a second heart event for someone who's just been admitted for a heart attack. And that's one of the reasons why a lot of hospitals work with families of the person who's had the heart attack who's a smoker. If other family members smoke, to not smoke around them, smoke far away, so you don't set it up for a second heart event.
Yeah, I think, I'm not sure, but from what I have witnessed as of the last 5 years particularly, is that there seem to be more people that smoke that do it away from their children or not even in their own homes than ever before. Don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. I see that. People tend to walk away from public entrances to buildings. They tend to walk away from where other people have to pass through their smoke, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, to me, it shows that they're being thoughtful about it. I would also say that a lot of people aren't smoking in their homes anymore because of the risk of careless smoking, accidental fires. The federal fire office, I've forgotten the name of the department, but still the number one cause of accidental fire death in residences is not electrical fires, it's caused by careless smoking.
Wow.
Often alcohol is a factor with careless smoking, as you know, but careless smoking. In fact, in the news within the last couple of weeks, so in case anyone is listening to this in the future, this is 2015, but within the last couple of weeks, there was a documented case reported on the news of someone carelessly smoking marijuana, left the marijuana cigarette in the sofa, went to bed, and it caused a horrible fire. So one of the things I like to tell smokers now is that if you're going to smoke, don't smoke inside the house. Eliminate that risk of an accidental fire. We've had a couple of tragic cases in Massachusetts this year, where people thought they were smoking safely on the porch, not just inside, but on the porch. And two tragic fires where, one person was killed and another fire, this multi-family apartment building, 30 people were displaced. There was almost $1 million worth of damage. Someone smoking on the porch was the cause. They thought they put the cigarette out, but they didn't. So.
Wow. So okay, I'm gonna get kind of mean here, because and I'm playing devil's advocate. Okay, with it, you said something about we got to be careful. That we don't demonize people that smoke, because people that smoke, just like people that don't smoke, for the most part, are very loving parents and good people, and I agree.
Right. Absolutely.
But the flip side of the coin of that is, and I think people need to, this is just my opinion now, I think people need to understand this, that if you are intentionally smoking in close quarters around a infant, that is a form of child abuse. Would you agree with that?
Well, I would say that if you wanted to get technical about it, you're exposing the child to a Class A carcinogen, which causes cancer. So I could see that it is. You could say it's child abuse because in a way you're abusing the child. You don't maybe not know it, but I guess you are. But I would also say there's other forms of child abuse that are more immediately worse.
Sure.
I just think that a lot of parents who are smoking around their child in a close enclosed space like a small car don't quite realize the health risks.
And I think what I'm saying is, once you do realize it, once you are informed, and you continue in that behavior, that at the very least that's neglectful of your child. And I think we need, those of you who are listening that may not have looked at it that way, I'm not trying to beat you up, but I think you need to get a clear understanding that a spade's a spade. And you don't want to do that to your kid. I know you don't. I saw a lady here recently pull out of the church parking lot with her infant in a very small car, lighting up a cigarette with the windows rolled up. I don't think going over to her and beating on her window and calling her a bad parent's the answer. But I think that she needs to have a reality check.
I would agree with that. I'm caring about I'm worried about the infant too. The infant really doesn't have a voice
right
now. And, when you think about it, there's other things that parents can expose their kids to as well that they should be educated about and make better decisions too.
Yeah.
Like when you expose your child to drinking or other drug use that you might be doing.
Right.
You're putting your child at risk as well.
Let's shift gears here for a second. Do you find that good? Do you find? Hey, they say I'm overly opinionated. What can I say? They say that whoever they is, and you deal in statistics all the time. Who is they anyway? Right.
Right.
But they say that people that have a history of narcotic or alcohol abuse or addiction, that the numbers that smoke tobacco are huge. Do you find that to be true?
Oh, absolutely. You see that here in Massachusetts as well. So in Massachusetts, statewide, there might be an average of maybe 17% of adults that smoke.
Yeah.
But those adults with mental health or with addiction issues, it can be much, much higher, including opiates, folks that go to methadone clinics. The numbers approach 70, 80, or even more.
Yeah.
Percent. Higher even than that, maybe 90%. It's very prevalent. Now, I'm kind of opinionated, too. I think part of the reason is that in the treatment community, clinically, we like to think we do a good job with folks who smoke, who have mental health and substance abuse issues. But I don't think we really do. I think we could do a better job offering treatment, offering medications. People want to quit smoking. People struggling with addiction or mental health issues still would like to quit smoking. The research shows that they might need, more nicotine replacement therapy, maybe a higher dose for a longer period of time, maybe more intensive tobacco counseling. But they can quit, and I think sometimes by not addressing it, we're just assuming that our patients, our clients, don't want to address it. I think we're doing folks a disservice, and so I like to try and challenge, other clinicians and other programs to do a better job. I mean, why are you assuming they don't want to quit? You should ask them, well, have you ever tried this? Have you ever tried that?
Yeah.
And people can quit successfully.
Yeah, people do it all the time. I mean, there's a lot of smokers out there, but people quit all the time and stay quit. I'm one of them.
Absolutely.
I here in a couple of weeks, I will celebrate my 18 years alcohol-free. And in a couple months after that, it'll be 18 years tobacco-free.
Awesome.
By the grace of God. But it did happen, and people do it all the time. There is definitely hope out there. Okay, we're going to take a break. And when I come back, I want to talk to you about a little bit more about quitting smoking while in treatment. I want to ask you a question about that.
Sure.
Folks, don't go away. More with my guest, Greg Seward. He is a master level tobacco treatment specialist and instructor at the School of Medicine at the University of Massachusetts Memorial Medical Center. When we return.
Hey, check it out. The best in recovery talk and positive music radio is now available on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, YouTube, and Podomatic. Simply visit any of these platforms and search for Take 12 Recovery Radio. Listen and download hundreds of our shows for fun and for free. Also available at take12radio.com.
Hey, listen, I'm a natural-born skeptic, and I wasn't any different when it came to CBD products until I personally experienced the safe and healthy CBD products of Exact Nature. Now, not only do these products contribute to a serenity of mind, relief of body aches and pains, and a quality night's sleep, but they may actually help those who are detoxing and experiencing withdrawal from certain mind-altering substances. And Exact Nature products, well, they never contain THC. So you won't get high, but you may just get to feeling better. To do what I did and find out more, visit exactnature.com. And once there, use the code TAKE12 to get 20% off your order just for tuning in to today's show.
When heart's on fire, you must realize smoke gets in your eyes.
Yes, indeedy, the Platters. We are talking with Greg Seward. He is a master-level tobacco treatment specialist at the University of Massachusetts Medical Center. Greg, there is a philosophy that I heard a long time ago when I was going through outpatient for alcohol recovery. And that was the suggestion that it would be a good idea to quit tobacco at the same time because you're going to grieve all of it at once. And it's easier to grieve it all at once, because you're grieving the loss of the addiction, than to quit alcohol, get in recovery for that, and then they have to go through an entire new grieving process when you quit tobacco, which might cause you to relapse on alcohol. Does that make sense?
Well, I think that if you can, it's best to quit everything at once.
Okay.
Not just if you can, because you really do eliminate a lot of the triggers and cues, and you begin to work on your recovery and feelings. You don't want to instead of working through some feelings and issues in counseling or therapy or at a meeting, you don't want to say, well, I'm just going to quench this with cigarettes. The other thing, too, is that, sometimes I hear, one drug at a time. Well, a lot of people use more than one drug at a time. Alcohol or heroin, cocaine, which one do you pick? And so if someone picks heroin, do you say, well, whatever you do, you never say keep on drinking, because if you don't, you're going to put your heroin recovery at risk.
Yeah.
You can quit everything at once. If you're detoxing, think of detoxing from nicotine as well. If you're a heavy smoker, maybe you can do it cold turkey, but you might need one patch. You might need two patches. At UMass, we have people on 2 patches a day, 42 milligrams total, because one isn't enough. So sometimes people have a hard time just because they're not getting enough nicotine in the medications. They might be having too small a dose. In terms of grieving everything, setting you back, I guess that could be a risk for anything, at any one point.
Yeah.
Really, you can really do it all. You want to have a good support system in place. So, if you're working with a sponsor, if the sponsor smokes, maybe you want to even temporarily, talk with your sponsor. How can he or she help you? Maybe there's another person there who could help you with quitting smoking as well, or support you with quitting smoking. Sometimes a lot of folks smoke at AA meetings. There's Nicotine Anonymous meetings.
Yeah.
Maybe you could bring that into your recovery as well. So Nicotine Anonymous, do you mind if I talk about that for a moment?
No, I'd love for you to. We have a link to their website, by the way, at take12radio.com under recovery resources. Go ahead.
So, Nicotine Anonymous, the first NICA meeting I went to, I thought it was an AA meeting. It's the same 12 steps.
Yeah.
People are talking about quitting smoking. A lot of people that go to NICA have had recovery from alcohol as well. So you'll meet a lot of folks there who have been to AA meetings. It's the same 12 steps, sharing the same hope, strength, around recovery.
Yeah.
The goal is to, help people live nicotine-free lives. And they welcome everyone at meetings, including those that are using nicotine replacement therapy, including those that are in counseling to help them quit smoking. They have in-person meetings and face-to-face meetings, and there's telephone meetings. So, Nicotine Anonymous has only been around since the late 80s. So there's not as many meetings. It's not as well known as AA, but they have in-person meetings. I was looking at their website in Albany. I'm sorry, there is a meeting in Albany. Saturday at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, 238 3rd Avenue. It's right on their website. And there are also telephone meetings. Every day, there's at least 3 Nicotine Anonymous telephone meetings that you can call and participate in, or you could just call and listen in. You can begin to think you're not alone. People call in from around the country. Depending on the meeting, there might be 10, maybe 20 people or so.
Yeah.
And it can be real motivating. So you might be, stuck at your cubicle at work, thinking you're all alone, or you might actually be all alone on the weekend. You could call it at a meeting. And I would encourage, everyone listening to the show to at least check out a Nicotine Anonymous telephone meeting. Listen in on one. If you're a smoker or a former smoker, and you're listening to the show, chances are you care about yourself, you care about other people, and you might be able to tell someone else who'd like to get some help with quitting about some resources that you've heard about. There's meetings here in Massachusetts, all around the country in each state, but once again, even if you're in a small town all alone, you can still get to a meeting on your telephone.
Yeah, and with the onslaught of the internet and tablets and smart devices, and you don't have to do this thing alone, regardless of what your struggle is.
Right.
Yeah.
Correct. Absolutely.
Yeah, you bet. Once again, take12radio.com, click on the Recovery Resources link, and you'll find a Nicotine Anonymous there, as well as other resources. And for you folks listening in Albany, Oregon, or Lynn County, Saturday at 4 p.m. at 238 3rd Avenue. Go there and get some support. You're not going to be, criticized and condemned. You're going to be welcomed, and people get it. They understand there's a powerlessness effect over nicotine addiction. Let me ask you, my friend, we have seen in the last several years some pretty graphic commercials about the after effects of nicotine use. I'm sitting here now as somebody who is free from the bondage of nicotine. And I look at those commercials and have a son who is 22 years of age, who's going to be 22, who still struggles. And I think, wow, if he just saw that commercial. Well, he has seen those commercials. This isn't as easy as looking at a graphic commercial and just saying no, is it?
It's not. It's not. It can be easy for some people. It can be very tough for others.
Yeah. So that's why things like Nicotine Anonymous is so vital. Now, if a person doesn't have a Nicotine Anonymous meeting in their area, like you said, they can do the phone thing and they can get on the internet. They certainly can contact us here at Take 12 Radio, and we'll point them in the right direction. I'd be glad to help people get that set up. Go ahead.
Add another resource.
Yes.
All states have quit lines. Massachusetts has a quit line. Oregon has a quit line. Provinces in Canada have quit lines. And these quit lines, it's a toll-free number, 1-800-QUIT-NOW or 1-800-784-8669. But the Oregon quit line is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. and all of these quit lines operate pretty similar. Any resident of the state or the province that you're in can call and get free help. It's usually a combination of free counseling or coaching over the phone. And sometimes, depending on the state or province that you live in, they may have the ability to send you free patches or maybe free gum or maybe even free lozenges.
Yeah. I've heard a lot of good things about that, particularly the ones here in Oregon. Okay, so with those resources there, why do so many people not take advantage of it and yet really want to quit? Is it because deep inside they really don't? Because I hear that from people. If they wanted to, they would. Don't you think it has to do with the addiction itself?
I think some of it has to do with the addiction. I think sometimes people think that it's not the immediate priority. I know for instance, a 30-year-old or 20-year-old might say, 40-year-old might say, I know if I keep smoking, I might get lung cancer when I'm 70 or emphysema when I'm 65. Well, I'm 40. I've got 25 more years to do something about this.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, my big issue is heroin or meth. I've got to stay on top of this. I need a vice to cope or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
They see it as something that's, if they don't quit, years from now, that's when they'll feel the effects, so they can put it off. But also, it's the addiction. People struggle with all kinds of things that don't seem to make sense. For instance, for a long time now, I've struggled with weight. And so you might say, Greg, you work in healthcare. You're an addictions guy. Don't you see it? Don't you know you got to do something about this? And it's tough to make change sometimes. And in a way, smoking like weight, I don't know that it's socially acceptable like it in a way it used to be, but it's pretty available. It's very easy to eat unhealthily. Smoking is still somewhat socially acceptable. It's pretty available, relatively low day price, but it does add up. So it can be tough.
What about somebody who struggles with their weight and is somebody who is currently smoking? Just complicates matters, right?
It can complicate matters. So, for instance, as a clinician, one of the things I like to do is, help people, look at the pros and cons of smoking. What do you like about it? What don't you like about it? Look at the pros and cons of quitting. What would you like about quitting? What don't you like about quitting? Well, I might not like having to go through nicotine withdrawal and, wear nicotine patches. I don't like that. Things that you like about smoking, might be something that relaxes me. Things I don't like about smoking, well, my wife nags me. It costs a lot of money. I've got this cough that's getting worse. And a lot of people, when they quit, they fear the negative things. And I try to help people focus on some positive things about quitting. So in my practice, for instance, I use carbon monoxide meters. It's kind of like an alcohol breathalyzer, but it measures carbon monoxide on breath. And so one of the reasons smoking's so bad is that when you inhale on a cigarette, you're breathing in nicotine. That's what we get addicted to. But you're also breathing in hundreds of harmful chemicals, some that cause cancer. One of the bad ones is carbon monoxide. So carbon monoxide gets in your system in your red blood cells a little bit faster than oxygen does. So it takes up space. You don't have a full oxygen load. You've got, a high carbon monoxide load.
Yeah.
And it makes it harder for the heart. Well, within 2 to 3 days of quitting, all the carbon monoxide is gone. So if you come back and see me within a few days of quitting, we can test your carbon monoxide level and we can see that medical improvement. But when you come back within a week of quitting, if you're spending $10 a day on cigarettes, well, you've got $70 now to do something else with. So if today was the first day I was quitting, I might not like the nicotine patches. I might not like my high carbon monoxide level. But I know at the end of the week, I'll have, $50 or $70. I could take Andrea out on a cheap date, dinner and a movie. Or, with money I would have saved from not smoking. So I'm looking forward to something positive happening. I'm looking forward to my lower carbon monoxide level. I'm looking forward to a nice evening with my wife on the weekend. I'd also add there's carbon monoxide in marijuana smoke too, so it's not healthy to smoke anything. But
bottom line, Greg, anything we take into our lungs that's not pure clean air is probably not going to be helpful.
Correct. But
Yeah.
so the big thing with smoking, within just a few days of quitting, the health benefits begin, and they continue for weeks, for months, for years. Lower rate of heart disease, better breathing, better outcomes medically. So the benefits start right away, and they continue and build.
Yeah, that's great news. That's really, really great news. All right, we're going to take another break, and when we come back, I want to talk about two areas that people that are quitting smoking often go to. One, which is very popular right now, and we'll tell you what that is when we come back.
If you're trying to quit smoking, dipping, or chewing tobacco, you don't have to do it alone. Nicotine Anonymous is a 12-step program of recovery that meets regularly in your area. There are no dues or fees. The only requirement for membership is a desire to be free of nicotine. For information at meetings near you, call 877-TRY-NIC-A. That's 877-TRY-NICA, or visit nicotine-anonymous.org.
Now, welcome back to the show. My guest this week is Greg Seward, Master Level Tobacco Treatment Specialist and instructor at the School of Medicine for the Department of Psychiatry at University of Massachusetts Memorial Medical Center and Medical School. Greg, one of the things that we know a lot of people did for a lot of years in attempting to quit smoking is they would start chewing tobacco. And I used to make fun of my friends. I used to say, well, at least I smoke my tobacco, I don't eat it. And because I had a lot of friends that were doing that. They were chewing tobacco. There's a lot of health risks with that as well, right?
That's correct. I'm also thinking of an old commercial right now. I'm in a bagpipe band, Scott's Highland Pipes and Drums out here in Leominster. I'm such a good bagpiper, I play bass drum. There's an old chewing tobacco called Bagpipe Chewing Tobacco. Look up their ads. One of their taglines is "Good enough to eat."
Wow.
But anyhow,
yuck.
Back to your question. I'm sorry, Monty.
Yeah. Is there now? I saw there was a guy up in Washington whose son died from the abuse of chewing tobacco, and he was on a mission to inform people, and he had some pretty graphic pictures in one of his pamphlets. Yep. You know, the entire lower part of the jaw had been corrupted and was basically falling apart and so forth. And he was explaining to me, he was telling me that there's actually ground glass in chewing tobacco. Is that true?
Boy, I don't know. Maybe with some brands, I can't imagine that there is. But the biggest health risk is that, with chewing tobacco, you're holding all those tobacco juices that, you're not necessarily breathing in carbon monoxide. It's not as bad for your lungs, but all that stuff is getting into your mouth, into your blood vessels there. It causes horrible problems with the gum, the tongue, your teeth. You see a lot of baseball players really struggle with it. Curt Schilling, earlier this year, a famous baseball player, it was published this letter that he wrote himself. He wished he could write himself in the past, never to pick up chewing tobacco. Because of the cancer. It caused cancer for him.
Wow. And so this guy was explaining to me that the ground glass is microscopic, but what it does is it causes very, microscopic size lacerations in the mouth to aid in the delivery system of the tobacco.
The goal of tobacco companies is to get people to use their product and to get addicted to it. And they often put chemicals in tobacco that you smoke, things and things that you chew. So they'll put chemicals in tobacco that you're smoking to get the nicotine faster to your brain, to make the smoke less nauseous. They'll put flavorings in tobacco to make it seem more pleasant, to get you hooked. And they do this knowing that cigarette smoke kills 18% of all Americans. 18% of all deaths are caused by smoking. Tobacco companies know this, but they've got smart people working for them to look for ways, both chemically and also, psychologically, to get you addicted. So they'll do that with chewing tobacco. They do that with tobacco that you smoke. They do it with snuff, all kinds of things.
Yeah. It's like no scruples when it comes to money, And,
money is the root of all evil, right?
Yeah. The love of money certainly is, and the tobacco companies love money. All right, let's talk about something that is just growing in popularity like crazy, and that is vaping. I have a particular interest in this because my son, my oldest son, who's going to be 22, he has gone from using cigarettes to vaping, and now he's back to cigarettes again. He has tried to sell me on the idea that there's no clinical evidence that vaping is harmful. That anybody that says it is just trying to get you to quit vaping and go back on tobacco. So the tobacco companies are saying that vaping's harmful because they want you to start smoking again. And I mean, I hear all sorts of things from people. I don't have a clue what's true and what isn't. Is vaping a health risk?
I would say that overall, yes, it is. It's certainly, its growth is just exponential growth. Across the country. Vaping, electronic cigarettes have only been out really for less than 10 years, basically. They've gone through a couple of 2 or 3 generations. The latest ones are, you can buy these cartridges. You fill it up with liquid that you can buy,
right?
Or nicotine juice or vaping juice, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And one of the health risks with this form is the risk of nicotine exposure and nicotine overdose. Poison control centers around the nation, including the one in Massachusetts and Rhode Island, are reporting exponential growth in cases of nicotine exposure and nicotine poisoning. Half of the cases, and these are thousands of cases a year nationally, a few thousand cases a year, half of them are regarding kids under the age of 6. Now, what happens are, parents or adults will buy the vape juice. It comes in a little eyedropper. It's usually a bright color. It might say something like cotton candy or blueberry on it. And little kids will come along and think, oh, that's a nice bright blue, and oh, blueberry, I like blueberries, or I like cotton candy. And they'll drink it and get exposed or even overdose on nicotine that way. So a lot of kids are going to emergency rooms. It's so bad that one person wrote into JAMA, the Journal of the American Medical Association, saying all doctors ought to be trained in nicotine exposure and nicotine overdose and what to do with patients, signs to look for. So I actually, when I do grand rounds for docs now, I'll do training on this is what happened. This is what nicotine exposure, nicotine overdose looks like. If I have a client who's using one, I always tell them to have the poison control number near the phone, just in case. Nobody... the cases where the kids are overdosing, it is accidental, so it's a risk that way. The FDA has done some limited testing of electronic cigarettes. One of the concerns they have is from a nicotine dosing thing. So cartridges can come like in a no nicotine or light nicotine or heavy nicotine if you're a heavy smoker. They don't always have. They're not regulated. They're not FDA approved, FDA regulated. What it says you're getting in the cartridge isn't necessarily what you're getting in terms of the amount of nicotine. When you're using a nicotine patch or a lozenge or gum inhaler or nicotine nasal spray to help you quit, you know exactly what you're getting. You don't know what you're getting with the electronic cigarette. There's also other harmful chemicals that are in electronic cigarette liquid, is this chemical called propylene glycol. it's an ingredient that's used in some of the products we use every day that the FDA has deemed we can safely, wash your hair with or something, but it's never meant to be ingested or breathed in. Dow Chemical makes propylene glycol, and if you go on the Dow Chemical website and look up propylene glycol, you'll see that it should not be inhaled. It's irritating to our throats and stuff, but that's what we're doing with electronic cigarettes.
Wow.
So to me, but here's the other thing too, Monty, just think about this. So regular tobacco cigarettes didn't really become popular until after the cigarette rolling machine was invented, like 100 or so years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Right around, early 1900s. Cigarettes took off after the cigarette companies got them into movies, right? If you watch a Humphrey Bogart film, these movies from the 30s, 40s, and 50s, everyone's smoking, everyone's drinking.
Yeah.
And they were also heavily promoted, in the world wars. The cigarette companies would send cigarettes over to our troops, our fighting troops, and they all come back addicted. Now, prior to the tobacco cigarette being invented, lung cancer, basically no one got. But within 20 years of cigarettes taking off, you see lung cancer rates spiking.
Wow.
And it's because people before cigarettes, if you smoked tobacco, you were smoking a cigar or a pipe. You weren't breathing it down into your lungs. With electronic cigarettes, we're breathing it down into our lungs. And I wonder if, 10, 15 years from now, we won't be seeing, I think we probably will be seeing, a lot of health things that are caused by electronic cigarettes. Now, for me, once again, if someone's switched to electronic cigarettes, I'm thinking, let's look at this positively. There's a reason why they switched. Maybe they switched because they want to quit smoking, and they think because the way electronic cigarettes are marketed, they think electronic cigarettes can help them. But they're still motivated to quit. I want to help them by giving them something that's not risky like electronic cigarettes are. Something that's cheaper. The NRT medications, the patch, the lozenge, and gum are cheaper than electronic cigarettes. I'll tell you one more thing about electronic cigarettes. The Joint Commission on Accreditation of Healthcare Organizations, or JCO, is recommending to all organizations that they bring electronic cigarettes under their tobacco policies because of the documented fire risk with them. There have been documented cases of fires caused by electronic cigarettes in the U.S. and in Great Britain. And so more and more hospitals are banning their use because of the fire risk, especially with oxygen.
Oh, wow. People that are on oxygen in their homes, you mean?
Yeah, it's not safe to smoke. And, as far as your son goes, I would, if I was working with him, I'd try to embrace him and work with him towards quitting altogether. And, especially with the Oregon Quit line, maybe he can get free patches through there.
Right.
Electronic cigarettes are expensive in Massachusetts. They really add up. And, a lot of them actually are owned by tobacco companies who want to see you hooked.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. And they're also, it's very interesting because with all the marijuana dispensaries popping up all over the places in states where it is now legal as a recreational substance, the vaping industry, it's like if you want to go get your vaping oil, in many towns, you have to go to a place that's dispensing marijuana. Not everywhere, but that's a lot of it. It's a big money making thing. I mean, I've got friends in recovery that vape, and they tell me when they go in to get their oils, it's like the only difference between this and a head shop from the 60s is that it's legal. Yeah.
Well, I believe it.
Yeah. Interesting stuff. And so I hope that my son is able to put all of it down at some point. It concerns me. It concerns me deeply. And there's thousands of people out there that are caught up in this stuff, but there's hope. And that's,
absolutely.
That's why we do these shows.
The message.
Is
right.
To share our experience, our strength, and our hope, which is our tagline on our new website.
Well, you're such a great resource, Monty, to people who are struggling and suffering and people in recovery. You know, you do good work, and you're a good dad to your son too, man.
Well, bless your heart. Bless your heart. I appreciate that so very much. Well, Greg, we're just about out of time. Share with us. We got about 6 minutes left. What would you like to say in closing out this show today?
Well, I would say this. First, I hope I've not come across as too offensive, other than to get people to think. And, you know, there's hope out there. The truth is that smoking and tobacco use harm physically, mentally, financially. We're not getting, we didn't get recovery. We didn't get sober only to die from smoking or only to die from tobacco.
Amen.
So much good. There's so much good that can come in recovery from smoking. You know, with the money, with you being around for your children and grandchildren. Think of all the people your life touches. Now that you're sober, now that you're looking at getting sober. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Think of all the good that can come with quitting smoking, even after a week. Christmas is coming. You know, you could every week donate the money you would have spent on smoking to a charity. You could donate the money you're saving from quitting smoking to KHLT Radio to help other people.
Yeah. Amen.
And there's real help out there. Check out a Nicotine Anonymous meeting. You don't have to say that you're quitting smoking to go to a Nic A meeting. You could go just to check it out. Many people go to AA before they stop drinking. You could do the same with Nic A. Check out the state's quit line. You know, if you're listening in Canada, your provinces have quit lines as well. Free help, free coaching, even free meds. And, you know, if you're in Massachusetts and you want to come see me in Central Mass, I'd be thrilled to meet you.
Well,
so there's hope and there's strength out there, and encourage other people too.
Yeah, you betcha. Smoking is killing a lot of people, and it doesn't have to be that way. Addiction is the number one health crisis in our nation, my friends, and there's a lot of things we human beings are addicted to. Greg Seward, my guest, Director of Tobacco Constellation Service, licensed independent alcohol and drug counselor. He's a master level tobacco treatment specialist and instructor at the School of Medicine for the Department of Psychiatry at University of Massachusetts Memorial Medical Center and Medical School. Anything you take into your lungs that isn't pure, clean air is not doing you any favors. It really, really isn't. I don't care if it's vaping. I don't care if it's banana peels. I don't care what it is. It's just not something that you want to do. So, no shame here. We just want to help. So, please understand that there are resources available. Contact us here at Take 12 Radio at Comcast.net, and we'll put you in touch with the resources you need for that. Thank you so much, Greg, for taking the time to be on the show again.
Well, thank you, Monty. I have to say, you're one of the people I wish I could spend more time with. I've kind of looked at today as sitting down with a friend, cup of tea, and sharing some nice things.
Well, bless you, my friend. And we won't wait so long to talk about this issue again.
We should do this. We should do this every year, not every couple of years.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely should. All right. Well, there you go, my friends. We've been talking about an issue that it's really hitting home with some of you. I know it is. It's uncomfortable. But you know what? There is hope. There is strength. There is experience. You don't have to do this alone. We are on your side. Listen, do something today that'll make the person you will be tomorrow proud to have been the person you are now. Give us an email here at take12radio@comcast.net. We'd love to talk with you. My guest, Greg Seward. Thank you, my brother. Until our next broadcast, this is the Monty Man, and we're wishing God's perfect serenity for you.
This has been a broadcast of KHLT Recovery Broadcasting.
Matthew.